Hello friends, welcome to today's video. Today I am going to be reviewing this Morphe palette. This is the 15D Day Slayer. I received this in my March Boxyluxe subscription. Yes, that's correct. I have been using this for a while now, and I have some definite thoughts on this, the first Morphe product I have ever used. So what we're going to do today is not really talk about the company. Really, I didn't do research into the company, but just sort of my opinion of Morphe overall. I'm then going to specifically tell you about this palette. I'm going to show you it in use, about the look that I have on today, and then I will give you my thoughts and review at the end of the video. And as always, there are timestamps down below. Morphe is a makeup brand. I feel like it gets a lot more heated opinions than a lot of other makeup brands do. It's a low-cost brand. You get things fairly inexpensively, and for the longest time it was all online. We in the YouTube beauty sphere know about Morphe because, oh my gosh, Morphe pushes its stuff, or at least it did, through social media. So I think regardless of how you feel about the products, I feel like a negative impression was formed for a lot of people just because of how hard it was pushed. So most of us know Morphe because it was being used all the time, and it also happened to be used all the time by people who had codes to give you a discount at Morphe, but then they would also get funds back from that. Now, affiliate codes are nothing new. Like, I go to makeup brands' websites where you can just sign up for one no matter who you are. But somehow Morphe became this one that was pushed by sort of the biggest, most popular beauty YouTubers, and it just really started to blur the line between trusting people's opinions versus you know, are they just doing this for the money? Because people would buy the products and say they're not that great quality, and they're being raved about by people who coincidentally get money from them. They tend to do a lot of collaborations, so the most recent ones being sort of the Jaclyn Hill. She is very involved with Morphe. James Charles did one lately. And so in addition to people having their codes, you also have people who are partnering with the brand. And that, I think, is where things came from. There was also sort of a controversy around Morphe being privately labeled. So the idea was, I think people were saying it was actually Crown products that were being private labeled and then made into Morphe, which isn't a big deal. A lot of companies do this. They create their own lines, but then they will create lines for other people. It's gonna not come to me now, but there's a vegan cruelty-free brand that I've used a number of products from, and they say right on their website, if you want to start a vegan cruelty-free makeup brand, be in touch with us. We're a private label. We can work together. I think the issue comes in that there were denials of being privately labeled, and it never really was cleared up or not whether they were actually making these in their own factories. And this is one of those things where I feel like if they just came out and said, you know, yes it was, that people would be fine with it, because again, they're not charging huge prices here. But at the same time, maybe they're not, and just nobody would believe them. So there's all this stuff that's always swirling around Morphe, where I feel like, let's compare it to ColourPop, which is also a low-cost makeup product that was pretty much online only. And they didn't get quite the same thing. And I think it's because they didn't do the affiliate codes and push that hard, because they definitely do collaborations. Kathleen Lights is one of their major collaborators there. But yet somehow there's a more positive view of that company. And people love some ColourPop products and dislike other ones. Same with Morphe. Some people love, some people don't. But Morphe, it's always sort of been this, people are just pushing it for their own financial gain. And I think that is where sort of the bad taste comes from in a lot of ways for this brand. But if you strip all of that away, are these good products for the money? And I feel like shadows are where they are sort of known best. They've got other products. I don't feel like anybody liked their latest foundation, but eyeshadows I feel are their bread and butter, as well as brushes, eyeshadows and brushes. Let's talk about this palette here, the 15D Day Slayer. This is a $20 palette if you are buying it here in Canada, $16 if you are purchasing it in the US. So this is actually like less than drugstore. They say, these daytime bays are here to slay, Morphe babe. With a mirrored palette and 15 crazy, creamy, powerfully pigmented, beyond blendable matte and shimmer shadows, you're ready for non-stop glam from AM to PM. So let's take a look at what you get here in this palette. This is a plastic palette, so not cardboard, actual plastic, and you open it up and you get a great big mirror in there. Hey, there's my camera. There's the day outside. Look, the snow has actually gone away. And all of these shadows, it's a 15D palette. There's 15 shadows in here. They are definitely all in the range of brown and orange. Everything in here is orange toned pretty much in some way. And let me take you into the swatches. On this row, we have Natural, Spark, In the Crease, Forever, and Bronzed Beauty. On this row, we have Upbeat, Glow, Editor, Highlight, and Define. And on this row, we have Dessert, Epic, Blend, Just Eyes, and Sweet. And with those done, let's go into the eye look. I fully admit that I do not know what kind of look I'm going for today. I've been using these shadows since I got them, so I've played around with, I believe, every shade. Maybe not the deepest shimmer one or foiled one, but I've been playing around with all the shades. So even if I don't use it today, I have used it in the past. I'm going to start just by priming my lids, and I'm doing that with a little bit of Soft Ochre MAC Paint Pot. I have my foundation, concealer, and powder on, but nothing else. My brows aren't done or anything, so I can sort of tailor the rest of my makeup to whatever I come up with for the eye look today. I'm going to do a pretty standard kind of thing with, you know, crease shadows, shimmer on the inside, all of that. So I'm going to start out with a big fluffy brush into the lightest shade, which is called Natural. And I'll point out that these are dusty, these mattes. So you can sort of hopefully see some dust kicking up there, and then you do want to tap a little bit, and I can just sort of see a big puff of shadow coming up there. But while it's true that it is dusty, I've not found a huge problem with fallout. It doesn't seem to get all over my face or anything. I'm going to flick out a little bit just to give my eyes a bit of lift there to try to bring up my lid. I'm then going to use a smaller fluffy brush. This is a Luxie tapered blending brush. And what shall I go into? I think I'll go into Forever here, which is sort of the next shade of matte brown down, to deepen up the lower crease. And again, tapping off because I can just sort of see all the shadow moving away. Now here's the thing, is that is right, the color on the brush when I first put it on. And then that is it when I tap off. So you can see that a lot of the color isn't sticking to the brush. It's sort of dusting off. And I'm aiming for sort of lower crease now to start to define some shadow. And I'm still sort of keeping it flicked out here at the end rather than going down, because I'm trying to give my eyes a bit of a lift. With that shade as well, I'm going to start bringing it down to build up the shade on the outer part of my lid. I'll also say that sometimes I don't tap the brush off. If I'm trying to pack some color in, like I am here on my lid, just to place the color, I'm not tapping it off before I do that. I tap it off more when I'm blending, because that's when you want sort of the least product on your brush to build up rather than a lot of color. I am next going to go into Define, which is a pretty reddish matte brown there. I think I'll switch to a different brush. Yes. I'm gonna go in with this still fluffy but slightly more flattened brush into Define. And I'm going to use this to further deepen my lid. And then I'm taking a very little clean blending brush there to blend upward into the crease. I feel like I've gotten all the blended mattes that I want, or do I want a little bit deeper along the lash line? Maybe a little bit. I'm gonna use a flat angled brush, and I'm gonna go into Dessert, which is the deepest matte brown here. There's a black over at this end, but I'm gonna keep it with the matte brown. I'm gonna use that almost where I would like an eyeliner. And then I'll go in and blend it. And then I'm gonna go in with my little blending brush, but because I kind of don't want everything to just dust away, I'm gonna pick up a little bit more of that Define color and use that to blend. Okay, that is the mattes. Now I'm going to play around with some of the shimmers here. I'm gonna go in with Spark, which is sort of the lightest, get some true color there, gold up there. I've played around with these and I don't find they have a super amount of impact. The best I can do is put them on with my finger. That sort of gives the most impact. And you'll see even then it's not a huge amount. But I also brought in a brush so we can do a little bit of wet brush with this too. See, you can barely see that shimmer on there, and usually light foiled shades, I should say, because it's foiled, not shimmer, really come out. And this one, for some reason, just doesn't. So I'm going to use a flat brush and wet it there to try to build the shade up a bit. Still not very impressive. So what I'm going to do is go into one of these orange foiled ones here. There's both Glow and Highlight, and build some of those up just in the center with my finger. Now, I feel like I know that Glow has one of the best sort of payoffs of the foiled colors here. Yeah. And I'm just gonna sort of blend that with my finger over top of the mattes that I put down. And then I'm gonna take Highlight on my finger as well and do it just close to the middle. There we go. So it ends up being very orangey and fiery, which I don't mind. I sort of like warm colors on me. So now that we've done that, I'm going to do a little bit of building up color on my lower lash line. I'm gonna start with that flat angled brush again into Dessert, which is that darkest matte that I used. And I'm gonna stamp that along my lash line pretty heavily. There we go. And then I'm going to blend it out. I think with Upbeat, it's sort of this orange toned matte brown, which I think will tie in nicely with the upper lash line. And I'm gonna use a very tiny mini brush for this. It's a mini round brush, and the shade that I'm using there is called Upbeat. And I can't do this without making the worst faces. I try so hard not to like stretch my mouth out, but I can't help it. There we go. Very warm, very orange. I am going to go put on mascara, liner, and do up the rest of my face, and I'll be back to show you the final look. Here we are, guys, my look with the Morphe palette. I don't mind it. I like orangey, bronzy, warm looks. And that is definitely what this palette is for. My opinion on this palette is that it's worth the money. The shadows perform fine, and you're not paying a lot for them. So let's walk through a few things here. Starting out with performance, I found the mattes to be a little dusty. They didn't have great adherence to the lids, so you really have to sort of build them up use a sticky base because they can get a little bit patchy as you blend at them, but you can make them work. That's not a problem at all. They do last all day once you get them on. I haven't had any problems with them creasing or fading. That's been totally fine. I do think that their lighter shades of matte are better than the darker shades of matte in this palette. The darker ones are the ones that tend to get a bit patchy, or you're more likely to notice where they sort of buff away as you're blending. But they do blend, they do build up, they do work. It just takes a little bit more work. You don't really seem to get fallout with them, even though they are dusty. You know, tapping off your brush means you're not going to get as much onto your lid, and you can do the color packing and then blend from there. They do take a little bit of finesse, but not terribly more so than a lot of other brands that I've used. The foils or shimmers in here are surprisingly not great. I feel like usually brands are able to make their foiled shades and shimmer shades work, like those ones are easier to make them really bang, and then the mattes are where they have problems. And in this palette, weirdly, the shimmers are where you just don't really get much impact. You can make them work, but I looked at these shades in here and thought, these are gonna be amazing, and then they just kind of weren't. The packaging, I don't mind. It's really heavy. I know some people really prefer plastic packaging over cardboard. This has some weight in it. Like, I'm surprised at how much this weighs. I do like having the big mirrors. The packaging is great, especially for the price point. I don't love the shades in here. Let me say that again. I don't love the versatility of this because everything in here, you're going to end up making a orange warm look. Like, that's it. Everything in here is brown with orange tones, or, you know, some bronzy golds, but it's orange, orange, orange. So if you like that, this is gonna work for you because that's the look that you make. If you're looking for a palette that's gonna be versatile, this isn't going to be it. So let me summarize what I've learned just from this palette about Morphe shades. If you're looking for something to play with because you're new to makeup, or you just want to get an expanded shade range or a certain palette, you can make it work. I think what you're going to be looking at here is, do you like the colors in the palette? Because I do find they tend to do this thing where they'll give you like 25 shades of browns. And I feel like their palettes aren't necessarily versatile. Now, I feel like the ones they did as collabs, like the Jaclyn Hill palette, are much more versatile. The shades take some work, but they are definitely usable. And I often have reviews where things work really well but are crazy expensive. This one works pretty well, but is excellent price point. So in terms of value for money, you're getting it here. So I would not put you off of buying any eyeshadows from Morphe. I think they perform fine. They're not going to be Anastasia Beverly Hills shadows, but for the price point, they work very well. But I would love to hear what you think. If you've used Morphe shadows before, if you've used their products before, what you think, what palettes you love, what products you hate, let me know all of that in the comments. I do try to respond to every comment that I get, and I look forward to seeing all of you in my next video. Bye!